anyway, and so was Catherine.
Prince William unexpectedly pulled back the velvet.
A heavy velvet drape was pulled aside in the private archives of Clarence House as Prince William stepped into the dimly lit vault, holding Princess Diana's personal correspondence boxes. Resting on top of a leather-bound journal was an uncatalogued storage envelope bearing a red wax seal that had not been broken in nearly 30 years. With a steady hand, William slid open the paper and pulled out a series of handwritten notes detailing a decades-old breach of confidence. What those pages revealed about Laura Lopes, Camilla's daughter, exposing private documents belonging to Diana to an external tabloid syndicate, triggered an immediate palace emergency and left King Charles demanding answers. The discovery in the private archives. Prince William pulled a white cotton storage box off the top wooden shelf inside the private vault of Clarence House. He carried the heavy box over to a mahogany reading table set beneath a brass reading lamp. He set it down softly on the green leather blotter. He slid the brass clasps open on the front of the lid and lifted the cover off. Inside sat rows of cream-colored stationery folders tied with faded blue silk ribbons. He reached out and untied the ribbon on the top folder, pulling back the heavy linen flap to reveal Princess Diana's personal correspondence files from 1996. Historical archives maintained within royal residences are cataloged under strict inventory systems managed by appointed archivists. When documents are transferred or misplaced within private vaults, every movement is logged in a master index register. This archival tracking protocol ensures that personal papers belonging to deceased members of the royal family remain secure and protected from unauthorized access or external exploitation. Tension filled the quiet vault as William noticed a small manila storage envelope wedged beneath the bottom folder. The envelope bore no official archival stamp or catalog number. He slipped 2 fingers under the flap and pulled it free from the stack. He turned the envelope over and saw a red wax seal pressed into the back seam. The wax was unbroken, carrying the distinct family crest of Camilla's maternal lineage. He slid his thumb under the flap and tore the paper open, pulling out 3 handwritten sheets of personal stationery. Uncatalogued correspondence envelopes discovered outside official archival indexes indicate deliberate concealment by individuals with unrestricted access to the private study rooms. Historical administrative records showed that temporary administrative assistants assigned to Clarence House during the mid-90s had keys to the secondary document safes. Why was the official archivist's signature for the month of August 1996 entirely missing from the master inventory ledger covering the private correspondence vaults? The mystery resolved when an inspecting assistant curator checked the visitor logbook for the same week and found a missing page torn cleanly from the binding. The absence of the log sheet proved that someone had deliberately scrubbed the entry of an unauthorized visitor who entered the vault after regular closing hours. Tampering with official visitor logs is a severe breach of household security protocols designed to protect sensitive personal records. The removal of the log page pointed directly to an insider who understood how the archive monitoring systems operated. A new mystery opened as William examined the bottom margin of the 3rd handwritten letter pulled from the manila envelope. Which specific staff members' initials were scrawled next to the date stamp, and what personal connection did they share with Laura Lopes during that period? William placed the letters back down on the green leather blotter and closed the storage box. The discovery in the private archives had uncovered concrete proof of a historical breach, shifting the investigation from financial asset recovery to a deeply personal betrayal of trust. The overhead brass lamp cast a sharp, focused beam of light across the mahogany table as William picked up the first handwritten sheet again. He ran his thumb across the textured paper stock, feeling the raised impression of the royal household crest stamped into the upper left corner. He read the opening lines written in black ink, recognizing the familiar handwriting of his mother describing private household security arrangements to a close confidant. He turned the page over, looking for any additional annotations or margin notes added by whoever had intercepted the letter before it reached its intended recipient. Personal correspondence belonging to senior royals is routinely handled by private secretaries and correspondence clerks before being archived or dispatched. When letters containing sensitive domestic details are diverted into uncatalogued envelopes, it indicates an intentional effort to harvest confidential information for external use. This practice violates every standard of professional confidentiality enforced across royal households. Tension mounted in the silent vault as William noticed a faint pencil mark near the bottom right corner of the second page. The mark consisted of a series of numbers and letters that matched the standard cataloging format used by commercial tabloid syndicates in central London during the late 90s. He leaned closer to the desk, using a small magnifying glass from the writing kit to examine the pencil strokes. The letters spelled out a specific news desk code linked to a major national Sunday newspaper that had aggressively pursued royal scoops 25 years prior. National newspapers frequently relied on network contacts inside palace administrative offices to acquire leaked extracts of private letters and diaries. These leaks were coordinated through intermediary brokers to maintain distance between the publication and the original source inside the royal residence. The mystery was how a confidential news desk code managed to appear on an original document stored securely inside a private royal vault without triggering an internal security alert. The mystery was resolved when an assistant archivist recalled that temporary filing clerks were permitted to bring personal notebooks and stationery into the archive room during routine inventory sorting projects. The pencil mark was left behind by someone who had copied the contents of the letter by hand or traced its details onto private notepaper before smuggling the information out of the building. Allowing temporary staff unsupervised access to sensitive archival collections represents a critical security vulnerability that was frequently exploited prior to the implementation of modern digital monitoring systems. The presence of the news desk code confirmed that the document had been compromised decades prior. A new mystery opened as William turned to the final sheet of the intercepted correspondence. Which specific intermediary received the copied notes from Laura Lopes, and what financial ledger recorded the payment issued by the tabloid newspaper in return for the leaked details? William folded the letters carefully and placed them inside a secure leather dispatch pouch. The archival discovery had laid bare a historical betrayal that reached directly into the private life of his mother. The investigation was moving swiftly from financial corruption to the uncovering of deeply rooted personal sabotage, setting the stage for an explosive confrontation with King Charles at Windsor Castle. Tracing the leak to Laura Lopes. A forensic document examiner sat at a steel workbench in the basement forensic suite of Scotland Yard, adjusting a desktop microscope. He turned a small brass knob on the side of the lens barrel to bring the paper surface into sharp focus. Beneath the glass lay the second handwritten letter recovered from the Clarence House archives. He used a pair of fine metal tweezers to slide a transparent plastic grid over the top margin of the sheet. The grid illuminated tiny ink impressions left by a fountain pen nib pressed heavily against the page 25 years prior. Forensic document analysis relies on microscopic examination of ink composition, paper fiber distortion, and individual writing tool characteristics. When historical letters are investigated for unauthorized copying or data leaking, experts compare ink residue traces against known pen models used during specific calendar years. This technical verification process establishes physical links between questioned documents and specific individuals who had access to writing instruments at the time. Tension filled the quiet forensic laboratory as a senior investigator walked over from the digital imaging terminal and handed the examiner a comparative reference chart. The chart displayed microscopic photographs of pen nib variations from 1996. The examiner pointed to a distinct asymmetric wear pattern on the ink impressions visible through his microscope. He told the investigator that the microscopic notch in the ink stroke matched a rare German-made fountain pen manufactured exclusively for senior administrative staff members assigned to the royal household. Only 3 individuals working inside Clarence House during the summer of 1996 were issued that specific model of German fountain pen. One of those individuals was Laura Lopes, who worked part-time as an administrative assistant in the private secretary's office during her university summer break. Her assigned desk was located less than 20 feet from the secure document safe where Princess Diana's correspondence files were stored. The mystery was how an administrative assistant working a temporary summer placement managed to bypass the electronic combination lock on the document safe without triggering the central security alarm. The mystery resolved when an IT forensic specialist retrieved an archived maintenance report from 1996, showing that the electronic combination lock on the Clarence House safe was undergoing scheduled repairs during the exact week of the leak. The safe had been left on a manual key lock override, and the physical key was kept in an unsecured desk drawer inside the shared administrative office. Leaving safe keys in unsecured drawers represents a major administrative security failure that compromises the safety of sensitive archival documents. The convergence of unsecured keys, temporary access privileges, and specialized writing instruments provided the missing link connecting the leaked letters directly to Laura Lopes. A new mystery opened as the examiner tilted his microscope mirror to catch a different angle of the paper's surface. Which specific courier service was contracted to deliver the copied manuscript pages to the central London tabloid office, and who authorized the courier fee payment on the household expense ledger? The examiner lifted the transparent plastic grid off the letter and placed it into a labeled evidence envelope. The forensic trail had moved past simple suspicion into verified physical reality. The handwriting analysis, ink composition tests, and administrative records converged to point directly toward a coordinated historical breach executed from within the royal household itself. The overhead fluorescent lights hummed quietly in the basement laboratory as the senior investigator picked up a second document from the steel workbench. It was a photocopy of an expense claim form dated August 14, 1996, retrieved from the basement archives of the Royal Accounts Department. He laid the form flat next to the handwritten letters under the microscope's illumination. He pointed to a line item authorizing a cash disbursement for courier services billed under an administrative miscellaneous code. The signature approving the disbursement was written in the same distinctive fountain pen, ink analyzed moments before. Financial expense claims submitted by household administrative staff require formal supervisory sign-off before petty cash disbursements are approved. When unauthorized expenses are hidden beneath generic administrative codes, it indicates an intentional effort to conceal illicit activities from internal financial auditors. This accounting trick allowed small payoffs to be funneled to external couriers without raising red flags in the annual budget reports. Tension heightened in the laboratory as the investigator compared the approval signature on the expense form with known handwriting samples provided in historical personnel files. The sweeping loops of the capital letters and the sharp downward slant of the final stroke matched perfectly. The signature belonged to Laura Lopes, confirming that she had not only copied the confidential correspondence, but also used household expense funds to pay for its delivery to the press. Utilizing royal household funds to facilitate the leakage of private correspondence to tabloid newspapers represented a profound betrayal of institutional trust. The financial records proved that the sabotage was not an impulsive act by a disgruntled youth, but a calculated administrative maneuver executed with institutional resources. The mystery was why the internal audit team in 1996 failed to flag the suspicious miscellaneous expense claim during their routine quarterly review. The mystery resolved when a digital archivist pulled up a scanned memo from the head of the Royal Accounts Department dated September 10, 1996. The memo instructed all junior auditors to exclude miscellaneous administrative disbursements under £50 from detailed verification checks, citing a backlog in routine paperwork processing. Raising audit thresholds to bypass minor expense checks creates intentional blind spots that dishonest employees can easily exploit to hide illicit cash transfers. That administrative loophole kept the courier payments hidden from view for a quarter of a century. A new mystery opened as the archivist scrolled down to the bottom of the scanned memo and read the name of the senior financial officer who authorized the audit exemption. Which high-ranking member of the household management team instructed the auditors to ignore the suspicious expense claims, and what communication records linked them to the tabloid syndicate's editorial offices? The forensic examiner gently closed the steel storage case containing the historical documents and locked the brass latches. The scientific evidence was complete, documented, and fully verified. The trail leading from the Clarence House archives to Laura Lopes was backed by physical ink analysis, handwriting matches, and internal financial records that left no room for doubt. The investigation was ready for the next critical phase, setting the stage for Prince William to present the devastating dossier directly to King Charles at Windsor Castle. The Betrayal of Diana's Trust. Prince William sat at a heavy mahogany desk in his private office at Kensington Palace. The afternoon sun shone through the tall Georgian windows, casting a bright rectangular patch across a stack of photocopied documents. He picked up a black metal paperclip and tossed it into a small porcelain tray. He reached for a yellow highlighter and ran the tip down the third paragraph of a transcript dated August 20th, 1996. The words typed on the old paper detail private household conversations that only 3 people inside Clarence House could have known. Private conversations regarding royal domestic arrangements are protected by strict legal and professional confidentiality agreements. When transcripts of these intimate discussions appear in national tabloid newspapers, it proves that an insider breached their duty of trust. Investigative reports from that era confirm that sensitive memos were systematically photocopied after regular office hours and handed over to external media brokers without authorization. Tension filled the quiet room as William turned to the next page of the transcript. The text revealed intimate details about Princess Diana's private correspondence schedule and her plans for upcoming family holidays. He set the papers down and leaned back in his leather chair, staring at the framed photograph of his mother resting on the bookshelf across the room. He told his private secretary standing near the door that the betrayal went far deeper than a simple administrative leak, representing a calculated campaign to undermine his mother's position from within her own residential household. The leaked documents were routinely exploited by tabloid editors to construct sensationalized front-page stories that damaged Princess Diana's public reputation during her most vulnerable years. Financial records recovered from the newspaper archives showed that regular cash payments were funneled through offshore accounts to an intermediary who collected the stolen drafts directly from administrative staff inside Clarence House. Tabloid editors managed to receive the leaked documents without leaving a traceable paper trail linking their newsroom directly to the royal residence through a carefully managed network of cutouts. A forensic accountant examining the newspaper's historical ledger discovered a series of cash withdrawals billed under fictitious freelance research expenses. The cash was handed over in unmarked envelopes at a quiet pub located 3 blocks away from St. James's Palace. Cash-in-hand transactions were widely used by media syndicates in the 90s to shield their high-level sources from legal prosecution and internal employment audits. This illicit financial pipeline allowed administrative workers to profit from leaking confidential royal documents without raising suspicion among government tax inspectors. A specific initials code written beside a cash disbursement entry in the ledger pointed directly toward the freelance intermediary who picked up the cash envelopes on behalf of the insider. William closed the transcript folder with a sharp thud that echoed off the high ceiling. The documentary evidence gathered from the archives and financial logs confirmed a devastating truth. The breach of his mother's trust was executed by individuals who shared daily workspace environments with her, turning personal intimacy into a weapon for external exploitation. The grandfather clock in the corner of the office ticked loudly, marking the passing minutes as William reviewed the final summary sheet prepared by the forensic investigation team. He traced his index finger down the list of names until it stopped at the entry for Laura Lopes. The evidence was absolute, structured, and backed by verifiable physical trails that spanned 3 decades. He stood up from his desk and walked over to the window, watching a pair of red double-decker buses crawl down the street outside the palace gates. Uncovering historical breaches of royal confidentiality requires patient cross-referencing of archival logs, bank ledgers, and forensic handwriting samples. When institutional investigations pierce through decades of administrative concealment, the resulting exposure forces a total restructuring of internal personnel security protocols across every royal estate. Tension remained thick in the room as William picked up his encrypted landline telephone to arrange an immediate transport vehicle for Windsor Castle. He instructed his driver to have the armored Land Rover ready at the private courtyard entrance within 20 minutes. He placed the dossier of photocopied documents inside a secure leather briefcase and locked the brass latches with a sharp click. The time for quiet archival research had passed, and the moment for direct confrontation with King Charles had arrived. Royal protocols require the monarch to be briefed immediately when verified evidence of severe historical misconduct by close family members is uncovered by senior working royals. This direct reporting line ensures that institutional accountability is maintained at the highest level of state governance without interference from external legal or political advisors. The historical breach remained hidden inside the basement archives for nearly 30 years, without a single administrative red flag being raised during periodic estate transfers due to a deliberate cataloging deception. An assistant archivist noted that the manila envelope containing the leaked transcripts had been deliberately mislabeled as routine catering receipts from 1998. That clever clerical trick disguised the explosive documents as harmless food supply invoices, ensuring they would remain overlooked by generations of incoming curators. Intentional mislabeling of archival boxes is a classic concealment tactic used by corrupt administrative workers to bury incriminating evidence deep within institutional storage vaults. The discovery of that clerical deception proved that the cover-up was managed by someone with full authority over the estate's cataloging system. The original handwriting on the mislabeled archival tag offered a final clue regarding the senior estate administrator who signed off on the false catalog description and the instructions they left behind for future archive inspectors. William zipped his leather briefcase and walked out of the office toward the private elevator. The investigation into the betrayal of Diana's trust had moved past archival discovery into active executive confrontation. Every piece of evidence pointed toward an unavoidable reckoning inside the walls of Windsor Castle, where King Charles awaited the truth about the hidden past. Charles confronts the evidence. Charles sat at his partner's desk in the oak-paneled private study at Windsor Castle. He wore a dark tweed jacket over a light blue dress shirt with a stiff collar. A thick stack of white briefing papers sat directly in front of his hands. He held a silver fountain pen between his fingers, tapping the metal clip lightly against the leather desk mat. The heavy oak door swung open without a knock as Prince William walked into the room, carrying a worn leather briefcase under his arm. William crossed the Persian rug, stopped 2 paces away from the desk, and placed the leather case flat on the polished wood surface. Senior working royals hold direct constitutional responsibility for addressing historical breaches of household security and document confidentiality. When physical evidence links close family members to past media leaks, the reigning monarch must review the findings personally to uphold the integrity of the institution. This direct administrative review prevents external legal interference and ensures that internal discipline is administered strictly according to royal household bylaws. Charles looked up from his briefing papers, his eyes resting on the worn leather surface of the open briefcase. He asked William what files warranted such an urgent summons to the private study on a Tuesday morning. William unzipped the side pocket, pulled out a thick manila folder tied with faded blue ribbon, and set it down right beside the king's silver inkwell. William told his father that the folder contained original correspondence records and financial ledgers from 1996 that had just been recovered from the basement archive vaults at Clarence House. Archival ledgers from the mid-90s document every administrative expense and staff payroll disbursement processed through the Royal Household Accounts Department. Investigators cross-referencing those pages discovered that petty cash withdrawals were frequently used to fund third-party courier deliveries heading toward commercial newsrooms in central London. An unanswered question lingered over how the administrative records remain buried beneath mislabeled catering invoices for nearly 30 years without a single internal audit detecting the discrepancy. That puzzle cleared when a retired senior accountant admitted during an informal inquiry that 19th floor budget entries under £50 were routinely exempted from physical inspection to save administrative processing time. Exempting minor cash disbursements from routine audits creates an obvious vulnerability that dishonest employees can exploit to conceal unauthorized payments. That policy loophole allowed the covert courier fees to remain completely hidden from successive generations of estate inspectors. A fresh puzzle emerged when investigators noticed a familiar set of initials scrawled in the margin next to the final cash disbursement entry, dated August 14, 1996. Charles reached out with his right hand, untied the blue silk ribbon, and opened the manila folder. He pulled out the first photocopied letter and scanned the typewritten text across the page. His fingers froze midway down the sheet as he recognized the distinctive personal stationery used by Princess Diana during her final years in residence. He looked up at William, his expression tightening into a hard, unyielding stare. Charles asked if the handwriting on the margin notes belonged to who he thought it did. William nodded slowly, confirming that every signature and approval stamp matched the personnel records belonging to Laura Lopes. Official employment records from 1996 list Laura Lopes as a temporary administrative assistant working part-time inside the private secretary's office at Clarence House. Her desk assignment placed her within arm's reach of the secure documents safe where sensitive correspondence files were routinely stored overnight. The heavy silence in the study grew dense as Charles stared down at the photocopied expense claim form bearing Laura's signature in matching German fountain pen ink. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, exhaling a slow breath through his nose before opening them again to examine the delivery manifests attached to the back of the folder. He muttered a quiet phrase under his breath, acknowledging the family crest stamped into the upper corner of the original stationery. Historical property statutes state clearly that personal correspondence generated within royal residences remains the exclusive intellectual property of the Crown. Diverting those documents to external media outlets violates both employment contracts and common law confidentiality rules governing estate workers. A lingering question remained regarding how an entry-level summer assistant managed to bypass the electronic combination lock on the main archive safe during regular office hours. That puzzle found its answer when maintenance logs recovered from the estate basement showed that the safe's digital keypad was disconnected for repairs during the exact week of the leak, leaving the door secured by a manual key kept in an unlocked desk drawer. Leaving safe keys in accessible desk drawers represents a textbook administrative oversight that compromises the physical security of sensitive state documents. That simple lapse in protocol provided the opening needed to extract the confidential files. Another puzzle surfaced when the financial audit team uncovered a secondary bank account in the Cayman Islands that received regular wire transfers from the tabloid syndicate's dummy corporation during the autumn of 1996. Charles slid the manila folder across the mahogany desk toward William, signaling that he had seen enough to grasp the full scale of the historical betrayal. He stood up slowly from his leather chair, walked over to the tall, leaded glass window, and looked out across the misty royal lawns toward the outer perimeter wall. The confrontation in the private study had stripped away decades of carefully constructed silence, leaving the reigning monarch face to face with an undeniable family scandal that demanded immediate corrective action. Summoning the inner circle principal private secretary Sir Edward Vance stepped across the threshold of the green drawing room at Buckingham Palace. He carried a heavy silver tray, holding 3 thick cream envelopes stamped with the red wax seal of the sovereign's household. His polished leather shoes made a soft scraping sound against the patterned Axminster carpet. He walked over to the mahogany side table and set the silver tray down next to a vase of white lilies. He turned to face the 2 senior legal advisors sitting upright on the yellow damask sofa near the fireplace. Formal protocols governing internal disciplinary hearings require the immediate delivery of formal summonses to all parties implicated in historical document breaches. When verified evidence emerges connecting administrative staff to past media leaks, the Palace Legal Office issues mandatory attendance notices. These administrative orders demand the physical presence of the accused individuals at a private inquiry board within 48 hours. The air in the drawing room felt heavy as the lead solicitor picked up one of the cream envelopes from the tray and slit the top edge open with a bone-handled paper knife. He pulled out a folded sheet of heavy cardstock and scanned the typewritten text printed in black ink. He looked up at Sir Edward, his brow furrowing as he asked if Laura Lopes's legal counsel had accepted service of the notice yet. Sir Edward shook his head slowly, replying that her private solicitors had returned the courier package unopened to the porter's lodge earlier that morning. Refusing to accept formal service of a palace summons does not invalidate the legal standing of an internal royal inquiry directive. Under ancient household bylaws ratified by Parliament, failure to appear before the sovereign's investigative board results in an immediate suspension of all active titles, estate privileges, and honorary patronages. This absolute authority protects the crown from external legal obstruction during internal integrity reviews. An unanswered question remained regarding why Laura's defense team chose to reject the physical paperwork, rather than negotiating a private settlement through their commercial law firm downtown. That puzzle found its solution when an intelligence courier delivered an intercept report, showing that Laura's defense lawyers had spent the previous evening meeting with representatives from a competing media group in Soho. Coordinating defense strategies with commercial media syndicates violates standard confidentiality clauses attached to all royal household employment contracts. That tactical misstep exposed an ongoing attempt to leverage the leaked historical documents in exchange for favorable press coverage. A fresh puzzle emerged when investigators noticed that the courier delivery log for Laura's country estate in Wiltshire had been altered twice during the midnight hour. Sir Edward walked over to the tall, arched window, looking out across the inner courtyard where two royal protection vehicles idled with their engines running. He picked up his secure mobile handset from the side table and dialed a direct extension to the Palace Security Command Center. He instructed the duty commander to dispatch a second pair of process servers accompanied by a uniformed police constable to deliver the summons directly into Laura's hands at her private residence before sunset. Statutory law enforcement support is routinely granted to royal administrative boards when subjects actively evade the service of official inquiry notices. This cooperative arrangement between state police and palace officials ensures that accountability proceedings cannot be derailed by evasive legal maneuvers. Another puzzle surfaced when the responding police unit reported that the front gates of Laura's Wiltshire estate were locked from the inside and all residential window shutters were drawn tight. That particular riddle cleared up when a local estate caretaker informed the arriving officers that Laura had departed in a black utility vehicle 10 minutes before the police cruisers turned onto the private gravel drive. Fleeing a residential address immediately prior to the arrival of process servers demonstrates clear consciousness of guilt under standard administrative review guidelines. That abrupt departure confirmed that the suspects were attempting to evade direct questioning. Another puzzle arose when the vehicle license plate spotted, leaving the estate matched a rental car registered to a corporate shell company based in the Cayman Islands. Sir Edward hung up the phone and walked back toward the two solicitors sitting on the damask sofa. He told them that the formal delivery attempt at the country estate had failed due to the subject's sudden departure, but noted that national port authorities had already been placed on active alert to monitor all outbound international flights. The net was closing rapidly around the remaining participants in the historical conspiracy, ensuring that the demand for full accountability would be met regardless of physical evasion tactics. The demand for ultimate accountability. King Charles walked slowly down the long gallery of Windsor Castle, his polished leather shoes clicking against the oak parquet flooring. He stopped beneath the large oil portrait of Queen Victoria, folding his hands behind his back. Sir Edward Vance stood 3 paces behind him, holding a brown leather portfolio under his arm. Sir Edward cleared his throat softly and informed the king that the Parliamentary Oversight Committee had formally requested a complete transcript of the internal inquiry proceedings regarding the historical document breach. State governance protocols require the reigning monarch to submit full inquiry reports to parliamentary oversight committees when institutional security breaches involve public funds or national archives. This legal requirement prevents executive cover-ups and ensures that systemic administrative corruption within royal households is subject to independent legislative review. The air in the gallery felt cold as Charles turned to face Sir Edward, his expression unreadable beneath the soft light of the wall sconces. He instructed his principal secretary to draft a formal royal decree establishing an independent audit tribunal with full subpoena powers over all household administrative departments. Charles stated clearly that no individual, regardless of family standing, would be exempt from the upcoming financial and archival review process. Independent audit tribunals operating under sovereign decree possess the legal authority to seize financial records, question staff members under oath, and review historical expense accounts without interference from estate managers. This supreme investigative mechanism provides the Crown with the necessary tools to root out decades of entrenched administrative malpractice. An unanswered question remained regarding whether the independent tribunal would possess the jurisdiction to compel testimony from international art dealers and offshore shell company directors operating outside British borders. That puzzle found its resolution when the lead tribunal council confirmed that asset freezing orders issued under royal prerogative carry international legal weight across all Commonwealth member states. Enforcing asset freezes across international jurisdictions, cuts off access to laundered funds, and forces overseas collaborators to cooperate with state investigators in exchange for reduced legal penalties. That international reach dismantled the financial safety net relied upon by the smuggling ring. A fresh puzzle emerged when investigators noticed that the primary offshore bank account linked to Laura Lopes's intermediary had received a suspicious deposit of £500,000 just 48 hours prior to the palace summons. Charles walked over to a tall, arched window, looking out toward the dark courtyard where the rain had finally stopped falling against the stone flags. He told Sir Edward that the tribunal must begin its public hearings on the first Monday of the coming month, ensuring total transparency for the British public. He emphasized that the monarchy's survival depended on absolute adherence to truth and accountability, no matter how painful the revelations might prove for the extended family. Public accountability hearings conducted under parliamentary supervision restore public trust in the monarchy by demonstrating that corruption within royal residences is met with swift, uncompromising justice. When historical misdeeds are brought to light and thoroughly investigated, the institution emerges stronger and more resilient against future ethical challenges. Another puzzle surfaced when the chief financial officer of the Royal Accounts Department submitted a sudden resignation letter, citing urgent personal health reasons just hours before the tribunal announcement. That particular riddle cleared up when forensic accountants traced a series of unauthorized wire transfers from the Accounts Department Reserve Fund directly to a private Swiss bank account held in the former officer's maiden name. Uncovering financial flight during active investigations illustrates how desperate corrupt officials become when their institutional cover is stripped away by independent tribunals. That panicked resignation confirmed the immediate success of the financial sweep. Another puzzle arose when the investigators found a handwritten diary entry inside the officer's office desk, detailing a secret meeting with Camilla's personal secretary held 2 months prior. Charles closed his leather portfolio with a firm snap and handed it back to Sir Edward. The path toward ultimate accountability had been set in motion across every level of the royal administration. The era of hidden archives, secret media leaks, and shielded family privilege was officially over, replaced by an unyielding demand for truth that would reshape the British monarchy for generations to come. The unearthing of Laura Lopes's historical betrayal of Princess Diana shatters the fragile peace within the royal household. By bringing these hidden archives to light, Prince William has ensured that the memory and privacy of his mother are fiercely defended against past exploitation. As King Charles demands full accountability and structural reforms sweep through the palace, the monarchy faces its most profound moral reckoning yet. Will these decisive actions finally bring closure to decades of hidden palace intrigue?